Hi, I'm Chris Douridas. Friday is Morning Becomes Eclectic, 2 exclusive premieres. In the 10 o'clock hour, Massive Attack. 11 to noon, Joni Mitchell takes us through her forthcoming summer release, Taming the Tiger. Morning Becomes Eclectic Friday from 9 until noon on 89.9 KCRW.
Since I lost you, I can't get through the day.
This is KCRW Santa Monica, KCRY Indio Palm Springs, KCRU Oxnard Ventura. Up next on KCRW, it's Morning Becomes Eclectic, a Friday morning here, March 27th. And today on the show, French singer Etienne Daou, Craig Armstrong with Elizabeth Fraser of Cocteau Twins fame, classic Aretha Franklin, Portishead before their Saturday show at Santa Monica Civic, Tom Waits and Ronnie Size before his appearance Saturday and Sunday at the Roxy. We'll have tickets. In the 10 o'clock hour, Massive Attack takes us through a premiere of Mezzanine, their third release due in May. And in the 11 o'clock hour, we catch up with Joni Mitchell and get an early look at her forthcoming summer release, Taming the Tiger. I'm Chris Douridas. It's all ahead this morning as Morning Becomes Eclectic. Guitar work from Joni Mitchell in the background. News is next from National Public Radio. Right now, one from the forthcoming release, Taming the Tiger. It's new work from Joni Mitchell as KCRW's Morning Becomes Eclectic. Step right up, show is about
row seats to the right side of the stage. And talk. That's a man. Two. With a yellow feather fan. Step right up. The show is about to begin. It's Highland in Havana time. Step right in. Silver spangles
from Mars.
I stepped outside to breathe the air and stare up at the stars. Big Dipper hanging there over the rent-a-car, over the rent-a-car. I'm a runaway from the red girl biz, from the hoods in the hood and the whiny white kids. Boring, the whole band is snoring and I'm taming the tiger. You can't tame the tiger. Tiger, tiger, burning bright. Nice, kitty, kitty. Tiger, tiger, burning bright. Sophia says it's hard to catch and harder still to ride. The time to watch the beast the best is when it's purring at your side. Purring at your side. Accolades and honors, one false move and you're a goner. Boring, the old man is snoring and I'm taming the tiger. Can't tame the tiger. Tiger, tiger, burning bright. Nice, kitty, kitty. Tiger, tiger, burning bright. In the forest of the night. The moon shed light on my hopeless plight as the radio blared so bland. Every disc a poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles. Up and down the dial, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by. And I thought of a Hana, wild and dear, like fireworks in the sky. Fireworks in the sky. I'm so sick of this game. It's hip, it's hot, life's too short. The whole thing's gotten boring. The old man is snoring and I'm taming the tiger. Can't tame the tiger. Tiger, tiger, burning bright. Nice, kitty, kitty. Tiger, tiger, burning bright. You can't tame the tiger. Oh, be nice, kitty, kitty. Tiger, tiger, burning bright. Nice, kitty, kitty. Tiger, tiger, burning bright. Fight to the light. Fight to the light. In the forest of the night.
It's called Taming the Tiger.
It was a dark and a stormy night. Everyone was at the wingding. They weren't the wingding type. So they went up on the train bridge where the weather was howling. And oh, oh, cries of love. They were laughing, they were dancing in the rain. They knew their love was a strong one when they heard the far-off whistle of a train. They were hoping it was gonna be a long one, 'cause my, when that train comes rolling by, no paper thin walls, no folks about, no one else can hear the crazy cries of love. In the back booth of an all-night cafe, two dripping raincoats are hanging. Outside in the weather, the shade on the street light is clanging. And they smile ear to ear and eye to eye. Ice cream is melting on a piece of pie. And oh my, no one else can hear the cries of love. Every kiss was sweet and strong. Every touch was totally tender as the train come rumbling along. They sang a lover's song of wild abandon. Oh, my. When that train comes rolling by, no paper thin walls, no folks about, no one else can hear the crazy cries of love. No paper thin walls, no folks about, no one else can hear the crazy cries of love.
Listening to Joni Mitchell from Taming the Tiger. The album is out in July on Reprise Records. Again, my thanks to Joni Mitchell for joining us. Also, thanks to JC Swadek for engineering these interviews with Joni Mitchell and Massive Attack. We had help in the show today from Jennifer Mandel, our faithful assistant for the last 5.5 years or so. Ariana Morgenstern producing the calendar of events. Our producer's Gemma Dempsey. I'm Chris Douridas, back on Monday. I'm Chris Douridas. It's Morning Becomes Eclectic on KCRW. I want to remind you that on Monday on the show in the 10 o'clock hour, members of Portishead with us. Monday in the 11 o'clock hour, it's William Orbit taking us through his co-production and co-writing of the new Madonna album, Ray of Light. On Tuesday, Bonnie Raitt's with us in the 10 o'clock hour, and then in the 11 o'clock hour, a solo live performance from Tom Waits. All this hour, it's Joni Mitchell. Her 20th album, Taming the Tiger, is due this July. She's announced several live performances upcoming. One at the Wiltern Theatre, April 16th, with Paula Cole, Stevie Nicks, Gwen Stefani, Trisha Yearwood, Sheryl Crow, Sandra Bernhard, Natalie Cole, Sean Colvin, and Toni Braxton. It's a show called Stormy Weather 98, an evening of romance, glamour, fabulous women, and beautiful music, performing pop, jazz, and blues standards with the El Nino Orchestra. She's also on stage with Dylan and Van Morrison Thursday, May 21st, and Friday, May 22nd at the Poly Pavilion, and Saturday, May 23rd at the Arrowhead Pond of Anaheim. We'll give you a chance at tickets to that show at the end of this hour. Right now, one from the forthcoming release, Taming the Tiger. It's new work from Joni Mitchell as KCRW's Morning Becomes Eclectic.
Silver spangles
Havana. It's new work from Joni Mitchell, the album Taming the Tiger. I'm Chris Douridas. It's Morning Becomes Eclectic on KCRW with Joni Mitchell. It's so good to have you back.
Thanks. It's fun to be here.
I recognize Wayne Shorter on the horn there, and I know that Brian Blade's on the record too. Is he on that track?
Yes.
On drums?
Yeah.
But I have no liner notes, so I'm kind of at your mercy to
okay.
Who else is on there?
Well, I'll tell you how it was built. I got a new instrument and an electric guitar with a lot of presets and a lot of colors to kind of fiddle around with, and I found this color. And all of the palette is accessible only by standard tuning. I've only written one song in standard tuning, Urge for Going, and then I went into open tuning land and never looked back. So in order to play around with these colors, I had to go back into standard tuning, while the fingering from open tunings has become eccentric. So even when I go into standard, I really don't know my way around the neck. So one night I was sitting in the studio and just kind of moving the dial from color to color to color. There are Clapton sounds in there, and
really?
Jimi Hendrix sounds, and all different
Any Joni Mitchell
kinds
sounds?
of colors. No, no. All the history of electric guitar is kind of in this palette, and some strange sounds like that, which is a color called crystal, kind of a glass mallet marimba, hammered sound. So I started playing around with it, and that music came up, and Brian and I jammed it down, and that's the basis of this track. So it was just the two colors, and because it was woody and mallet struck sounding, he played drums with basically toms and mallets also, and it was a very sheet of sound, like a carnival ride running over wooden rungs. That's what it reminded me of. And we called it, or I named it, before it had a text, Zulu Tango, because it's got a little tango motif in the chorus. So it sat around in the can as just this jam called Zulu Tango, and all of a sudden I remembered this incident in my childhood. In my childhood, I lived in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan during my high school years, and in the 7th and 8th grade, when all through high school, they used to come to our town every summer, the mile-long Midway, which I believe came up from Florida. And at the end of the Midway, there was a double Ferris wheel. Club Lido was along the side. So there were a lot of girly shows, but at the very end of it, right next to the Caterpillar and the double Ferris wheel, was a show called Harlem and Havana. And the locals basically said to us, don't even get caught standing there. That was the warning from mothers. Don't let me even see you standing there. And all it was black burlesque. So
why were they saying that, you think?
It was too exotic. You know, it made them nervous. Anyway, we did go, and we did stand there, my friends and I. And
of course.
The first time that I heard live black music, and it was Afro-Cuban, basically. But it was playing the big band, big horn section, and they were playing a lot of contemporary hits. Night Train, in particular, was the song that I remember them playing, but so very, very slow, way back on the beat. Eat a sandwich between beats kind of time. You know, real humid weather music. And when I was 14, a girlfriend of mine, who in the song I call Emmy May, ran off with someone in the band, and this was the scandal of the neighborhood, and came back with bleached blonde hair, and I was forbidden to keep her company, which of course, you know, I did. And the following year, we went to Harlem and Havana, and this is what the song is based on, because she got us in, and we were minors. You had to be 16 to get in, because it was kind of Red Fox humor, and mild striptease, you know, nothing major. Actually, it was kind of tame once we got inside, you know.
More burlesque or something.
It's more, yeah, it was burlesque, basically.
So, from the front of that tune, those sounds we're hearing are all produced by the guitar.
The very opening sound is just me playing guitar. Then Brian enters. Then from the palette of guitar sounds that are in it, I began to layer up. I played all the bass on this album, but in a few cases I had Klein play what I had, Larry Klein, my husband, my soon-to-be ex-husband, play what basically I had played. So as writ, you know, this is pretty much a composed album, this one.
Well, the instrument that you're referring to, you call it a, I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's a
guitar, but it's the sound, the preset is called Crystal.
Right, but the actual The
VG8?
VG8, thank you, which is the
computer guitar.
Yeah. Really, from what I understand, kind of broke down a block for you during the making of this album.
No, not even during the making. This album probably wouldn't have occurred. I'd gotten to the point where, well, this is my 20th record, where the process of making records is enjoyable to me, and I still have growth potential, but the business and the marketing had become unbearable, and the press and everything that followed it was just absolutely distasteful to me. And I'd painted myself into a corner where the tunings wreak havoc on the neck of acoustic instruments, and I spent a tremendous amount of time in concert tuning, you know. So I just felt that I didn't want to do it anymore, that I wanted out of the business. I'm a painter first anyway, you know, and I got seduced into music in art school, and I really felt at this particular time in my life that the energy had gone back to the painting and away from the music. I was uninspired. And so I took my final concert in New Orleans. It was to be my swan song. Well, the Sunday before, the Saturday that I played in New Orleans, a local merchant, Freddie Wallach, he called me up from Westwood Music, and he said, Joan, this Sunday we're having some Roland distributors here to demonstrating this instrument. And he knew that I'd been looking for some kind of a gizmo that would hold my tunings, and there were kind of rough mechanical versions of it around, you know, like where the bridge was altered or something, but this, you know. So I went over for the demonstration, and they wanted to show me all of the features, and I said, you know, really, I'm not interested in any of this. All I've been told is that it will hold my tunings, that we can take over these stock sounds and use the brain space, so to speak.
To store your tunings? To
store my tunings.
Wow.
That's what I want. So they kept trying to pitch it and show me what it would do. I said, I don't care about any of this. Just show me that you can put one of my tunings into it. You know, let's see how this works. So we put a couple of tunings in, and there you were, really in standard tuning, so with normal guitar players' problems. But it was being lied to digitally and told that it was in these tunings. So the tension of the strings was normal, and therefore the ruining of instruments was not present. Right. The warping of necks and, you know, all the stress and strain that I had put on the guitar physically by playing it in a way that it wasn't intended, you know, seemed to be corrected within this instrument. So I was very excited. And on the spot, I asked them to distill a signature sound for me, so we came up with a modified Stratocaster sound. Initially, the guitar programmer was a linear player. I'm a chordal player, and I play very peculiar chords, I'm told, you know, like hybrid chords. And so they move quickly from one to the other. He put a lot of flap on it, which is good if you're playing single lines, you know, and so it was kind of blurry, but in that rudimentary state, I went to the New Orleans Jazz Festival and took it out on stage with it flapping, and they were horrified. The Roland executive said, you know, oh no, you're going to have to woodshed with this thing for quite a while. I said, oh no, you know, I'm playing my swan song, my final concert this coming Saturday. This is it. You know, like, I'm taking this out. If I like it, I stay in the business. If I don't, you know, I'm gone.
Nothing like a little pressure.
So anyway, I went and did it, and the audience, like, some of them were aghast, and some of them saw that it had potential, and some of them even liked it. So, you know, it gave me a new toy to play around with, and that coupled with Brian Blade, you know, as a musical partner, you know, we were off on these kind of new adventures. And so that's how the album began, with just Brian and I. Then Freddie, midway through the program, introduced me to another Roland instrument. It just a piano, you know, with a lot of piano sounds, stock piano sounds, every kind of grand piano, honky-tonk piano, and the few more synthetic sounds. 64 presets, I think it has altogether. So with that new toy, I began to layer, and the next thing we knew, it started turning into this kind of symphonic piece. And I became my own bass player for the bulk of it. having worked with the best bass players in the world, was kind of a humbling situation, but a learning process also. So it was a great musical adventure.
You call Brian Blade your musical partner on this project, and our audience will know him for his work with Daniel Lanois and Emmylou Harris and Joshua Redman. Mm-hmm. And he's got his own solo album coming sometime soon too, doesn't he? He's
got his own band now, the Brian Blade Fellowship, which is a big band, big, 3 horns and.
Yeah, I think Blue Note is putting out soon or something.
Yeah, I've heard it's beautiful.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, the first song that was completed for this album was
Man from Mars.
Man from Mars.
That was for a film project. When I went to the meeting, they, I was invited by my husband, who was musical director on the film, to speak with the director, and I told...
This was Allison Anders.
Allison. Yeah. I told Allison, I said, look, I'm blocked right now. The only thing you'll be getting out of me is an I Hate Show Business song. She said, that would be fine. I hate it too. I just ran the press gauntlet, Well, shortly after that, I love cats. I've got 4 cats now. But my beloved Nietzsche ran off for 18 days. Well, the eve that he departed, my grief was so similar to the heroine of the movie that I kind of tapped into it. I started writing the film, tapping into my actual grief at the moment and her theatrical grief. So the song lies somewhere between her feelings and mine. Hers because her boyfriend drowns himself, mine because my beloved cat was at large. And anyway, it took me 17 days to write the song. On the 18th day, he came back.
Really?
Yeah. And the thing is, he's a dancing cat. I have 2 dancing cats. He dances standing on his hind legs, and he does this to express affection. And he dances around to this song. The first time that he deviated from his pattern, which is dancing down the stairs, this sounds so strange, he just stood on his hind legs. There's built into the music. It's the deepest mix on the record. There are things way, way, way in the distance because of all of those 17 nights that I went out into the neighborhood calling him and listening deeply. You could hear freeways far away and, water dripping off of leaves because the sprinklers just went off in someone's yard, and the flap and the thump of night birds and, critters rustling in the grass and
so it's
distant
all there?
horns. And, there is... If you listen in the mix, as much as music can depict those things, I've tried, and I think I've captured the event to my cat's satisfaction. Since I lost you, I can't get through
from Mars. That's from the new album from Joni Mitchell, Taming the Tiger. And that's simply you and Brian Blade. Mm-hmm. Brian Blade doing the drum work and everything else is you.
Mm-hmm. And it's mostly guitar, playing all of the horns.
And bass, you're on bass as well?
Yeah, it's my fledgling. That's my first time as a bass player.
That's your first time playing bass on record?
Well, it's keyboard bass. You know, oh yeah, I mean, from the beginning, but it wasn't until my fifth album that I put a band on, because the rhythm section always had a very difficult time with my music. They'd play and it would be so disappointing I'd take it off, right? So I've always been picky about the rhythm section, and because of it, I've played with great bass players and drummers, you know, of my generation, and the one before even, you know, like I've played with great people. But prior to Jocko, Max Bennett, who's a fine bass player, I had ideas about the bass that I was telling bass players that I wanted them to do that were pretty progressive, I guess, in retrospect. And they were saying, no, the bass doesn't do that, Joni. It's a team player. It's a supportive instrument. And, you know, having played this record myself, some of the things that I told myself to do as the producer, talking to the bass player, I really have sympathy with bass players that I've worked with before now, you know, and a greater respect for the simplicity of Max Bennett's playing on Court and Spark, for instance, because I wanted him to go up and move around and do more of the things that Jocko was doing. I mean, on the next projects, you know. Matter of fact, it was a bass player that said, look, you know, Joan, you know, there's this really weird bass player who plays with Bob Hope and Phyllis Diller, and you should send for him. He's really weird. You like him.
Phyllis Diller?
That's who Jocko was playing with when I
had no idea he played with Phyllis Diller.
He was playing in hotels. You know, he was just a kid before he played, you know, with Weather Report or myself. So I sent for him sight unseen on the word of this bass player who I was asking to do things that he refused to do. He said, well, this weirdo will do them for you. So Jocko was kind of the bass player of my dreams in a certain way, and that he was doing things that I felt the bass could and should do that no one would do, you know, like, and Jocko was trying to be, and was being, Jimi Hendrix on the bass, is
taking
what he
it
was
out front.
doing. Yeah, and I just kept thinking, you know, well, the bass doesn't do that, bass players kept saying to me. Why, I'd say. Well, I know a lot of the whys now, having played, you know, some of the things that I told myself to do and tried were pretty strange.
Like what?
On this record. Oh, it's just notes. I can't really describe it. I'd have to play you what, you know, just ideas that I had that failed. So this bass playing is fairly meat and potatoes.
But the why of it, I mean, you found out the why of it.
Well, the thing was that I, you know, they say women hear the high end first anyway, that, you know, maybe because babies cry and we're designed to hear high end frequencies. But, you know, I worked my way down from what was considered strange upper harmony anyway. I had a strange harmonic sense, so I was asking the bass to do things. On the bottom, they would say, well, that's not the root of the chord. I was asking them to do rhythmic and harmonic things that they thought were not hip. I was also hip at the time that I began working with bass players, was a very dead sound, and I wanted a resonant sound, and so you were asking people to go against the vogue, and people don't like to stick out. There aren't that many people that like to take chances. They're afraid to be unhip. You know, to be the leader of the next hip, you have to be willing to be unhip.
Especially when you're taking from the jazz crowd like that.
Yeah. You know, so, and I was a woman too, and they think, oh, isn't that cute? She's telling us our business, you know. But as I began to work with great jazz musicians, like when Wayne came in on this project, he went, oh, they're never going to know where one is, you know, whereas there were other players that came in and were intimidated by the rhythms on this record. And I find that hard to believe, especially from jazz musicians. But my music isn't jazz. It's wide like jazz. It's polyrhythmic like jazz. But it isn't jazz. So, you know, I'm asking them to step into an idiom that isn't quite familiar.
The title of the album, Taming the Tiger, is also the title of one of the songs on the album. I haven't seen the cover of the album, but I suspect that it's a painting of yours.
Yeah, there's a lot of paintings on the cover this time.
Okay. Is the painting Taming the Tiger? Well,
kind of loosely. It's just a picture of myself and my cat El Cafe, who is one of my dancing cats, and she's
along with
reclining along with Nietzsche. They don't dance together though; it's two different kinds of dance. El Cafe is a wrist rider. She's kind of an equestrian, you know. She
rides your wrist.
She rides my wrist. Yeah, she neck reins. But anyway, she's reclining kind of like Cleo, and she's got a very Jack Benny look on her face, and like Cleopatra on the Nile, like lying in my arms, and it's kind of a kind of a cozy portrait, you know.
So we've met two of the cats. Who are the other two?
Pansy, that's my Canadian girl. That's Nietzsche's little wife, and Mojo, that's the youngest cat.
Pansy and Mojo.
Pansy, Mojo, El Cafe, and Nietzsche.
Okay. You had said there was sort of a link between Man from Mars and Taming the Tiger.
Well, Man from Mars was the first song born in the project, you know, like, and it took this personal loss for me to be able to get inside the character in order to write this song for the film. You know, like I said, now song 2, I'm coming back to what I said originally, you know, I only have one song inside of me. I'm mad at show business, you know. So Taming the Tiger was kind of an analogy, but it was a big meditation. It was really, really hard to know what I meant by taming the tiger. I mean, I asked myself, you know, who is the tiger and what do you mean? Because it was complex. So for instance, Sophia says it's hard, the second verse, Sophia says it's hard to catch and harder still to ride. That's something Sophia Loren said. Sophia also means wisdom. You know, the name means wisdom. Sophia Loren said of show business, you know, hard enough to catch the tiger, harder still to stay on its back, right? So using the analogy of the tiger, you know, for a metaphor for show business, as it is in, the song was terribly in danger of being a mixed metaphor. You know, I had to keep focusing myself. What do you mean by the tiger? What do you mean by the tiger?
This is while you're writing it, or afterwards looking back?
While I'm writing it, while I'm meditating on the song. Parqueting the words to the music requires a lot of meditation, and this was a big idea, a big meditation. You know, who is the tiger? What is the tiger? Is the tiger show business? You know, well, it definitely was this force, this negative force that I found coming against my music at the moment that I completed the project and turned it over to the company. You know, so that the process went from, you know, work and excitement, you know, excited work, enthusiastic work with a support system into the hands of hostiles. You know, for one reason or another, we're going to dismiss a lot of beauty as they had for many years. You know, you're given about 5 years in this game, and then it's, for whatever reason, chronological age, it's time to get your ass because we were nice the last time. All the games that one must endure in the process of staying in this business, riding the tiger for a long time. You know, I finally got sick of it. I wanted off, desperately, you know. And yet I was still good at it and hadn't perhaps even hit my stride. And that was the thing that I was also weighing out, you know, being responsible to my gift. You know, knowing that there were people, not enough to impress the bean counters, you know, and not enough to get the merchants, the mercantile factor, to announce with pride that there was a project coming out on me, you know, that I was getting rolled over, that I had lost my airplay for swinging too far into jazz, or no one could ever really give me a reason. But my imitators were all over the airwaves, but I was still barred. You know, and yet my name was up and everywhere. So I was finally fed up. It was being misconstrued that I was, you know, worried about these young girls nipping at my heels. Not at all. But you know, they were getting, I was unable to get my product to market, and nobody could explain why. You know, so what was the point?
Breathe the air and stare up at the stars. biz from the hoods in the hood and the whiny white kids. Boring, the whole band is snoring, you know. Taming the tiger, you can't tame the tiger. Tiger, tiger, burning bright. Nice, kitty, kitty. Tiger, tiger, burning bright. Sophia says it's hard to catch and harder still to ride. The time to watch the beast the best is when it's purring at your side. Purring at your side. Accolades and honors, one false move and you're a goner. Boring, the old man is snoring and I'm taming the tiger. Can't tame the tiger. Tiger, tiger, burning bright. Nice, kitty, kitty. Tiger, tiger, burning bright. In the forest of the night. The moonshade light on my hopeless plight as the radio blared so bland. Every disc a poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles. Up and down the line, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by. And I thought of a Hana, wild and dear, like fireworks in the the moonshade light on my hopeless plight as the radio blared so bland. Every disc a poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles. Up and down the line, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by. And I thought of a Hana, wild and dear, like fireworks in the the moonshade light on my hopeless plight as the radio blared so bland. Every disc a poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles. Up and down the line, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by. And I thought of a Hana, wild and dear, like fireworks in the the moonshade light on my hopeless plight as the radio blared so bland. Every disc a poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles. Up and down the line, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by. And I thought of a Hana, why for juveniles up and down the line, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by, and I thought of a Hannah, wild and dear, like fireworks in the moonshade light on my hopeless plight, as the radio blared so bland. Every disc, poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles up and down the line, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by, and I thought of a Hannah, wild and dear, like fireworks in the moonshade light on my hopeless plight, as the radio blared so bland. Every disc, poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles up and down the line, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by, and I thought of a Hannah, wild and dear, like fireworks in the moonshade light on my hopeless plight, as the radio blared so bland. Every disc, poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles up and down the line, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by, and I thought of a Hannah, wild and dear, like fireworks in the moonshade light on my hopeless plight, as the radio blared so bland. Every disc, poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles up and down the line, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by, and I thought of a Hannah, wild and dear, like fireworks in the moonshade light on my hopeless plight, as the radio blared so bland. Every disc, poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles up and down the line, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by, and I thought of a Hannah, wild and dear, like fireworks in the moonshade light on my hopeless plight. juveniles up and down the line, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by, and I thought of a Hannah, wild and dear, like fireworks in the moonshade light on my hopeless plight, as the radio blared so bland. Every disc a poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles up and down the line, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by, and I thought of a Hannah, wild and dear, like fireworks in the moonshade light on my hopeless plight, as the radio blared so bland. Every disc a poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles up and down the line, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by, and I thought of a Hannah, wild and dear, like fireworks in the moonshade light on my hopeless plight, as the radio blared so bland. Every disc a poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles up and down the line, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by, and I thought of a Hannah, wild and dear, like fireworks in the moonshade light on my hopeless plight, as the radio blared so bland. Every disc a poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles up and down the line, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by, and I thought of a Hannah, wild and dear, like fireworks in the moonshade light on my hopeless plight, as the radio blared so bland. Every disc a poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles up and down the line, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by, and I thought of a Hannah, wild and dear, like fireworks in the moonshade light on my hopeless plight as the radio blared so bland. Every disc a poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles, up and down the line, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by. And I thought of a Hannah, wild and dear, like fireworks in the the moonshade light on my hopeless plight as the radio blared so bland. Every disc a poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles, up and down the line, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by. And I thought of a Hannah, wild and dear, like fireworks in the moonshade light on my hopeless plight as the radio blared so bland. Every disc a poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles, up and down the line, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by. And I thought of a Hannah, wild and dear, like fireworks in the moonshade light on my hopeless plight as the radio blared so bland. Every disc a poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles, up and down the line, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by. And I thought of a Hannah, wild and dear, like fireworks in the moonshade light on my hopeless plight as the radio blared so bland. Every disc a poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles, up and down the line, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by. And I thought of a Hannah, wild and dear, like fireworks in the moonshade light on my hopeless plight as the radio blared so bland. Every disc a poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles, up and down the line, mercenary style. spears, and a plane went blinking by. And I thought of a Hannah, wild and dear, like fireworks in the the moon shed light on my hopeless plight as the radio blared so bland. Every disc, a poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles, up and down the dial, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by. And I thought of a Hannah, wild and dear, like fireworks in the moon shed light on my hopeless plight as the radio blared so bland. Every disc, a poker chip, every song just a one-night stand. Formula music, girly gal, genuine junk food for juveniles, up and down the dial, mercenary style. I watched the stars chuck down their spears, and a plane went blinking by. And I thought of a Hannah, wild and dear, like fireworks in the moon shed light on my hopeless plight as the radio